So what's happening right now is I'm diving straight in to a strategy I think is going to be really helpful for many language learners. If you follow me, you know that I plan my language studies in quarters. So it is the start of quarter 2 for my language studies. This is the first time that you're seeing me. Hello, my name is Bront'e. I'm a language coach, and I help language learners go from feeling frustrated with their language studies to making consistent progress and confidently using the languages that they're learning. What I want to talk to you about today is the ideal things that you should be doing, my recommendations of what you should be doing right now in your language studies to make that consistent progress and start using the languages that you're learning. It is title of this live, which is a language learning audit. Now, I have a whole workshop on this that I just pre-shared with my members in my Fluency Mastery Lab coaching membership. Like it's a 36-minute video, all the step-by-step process, and I have members currently going through it again for their own language studies. But I wanted to share part of the work with you because I understand how important this is for your language studies. So I'm going to give you a series of questions and series of things to think about in your language studies. If you're watching right now, you can literally go through it. You don't have to share your answers in the chat, but you can, or in the comments, whatever it might be. The very first thing that I recommend in this sort of language learning audit is an overview. What are all of the things that you've done in your language studies or not have done? Like maybe you planned it, you just didn't actually do the thing. Write those things down. Give yourself a sort of baseline of what happened over the past 3 months, 6 months, a year. If this is the first time you're ever doing any sort of reflection in your language studies, think about all the things you've done maybe in 2023 and thinking about now. But really break down all of those pieces. So when I do this work for myself, like if I do my own reflection right now, I'm going to think about how from January to March, my language studies was very low stakes. It was very casual. It was very like do some studying when I can, but mostly maintain my skills because life was lifing. And that is okay because that was in my plan. Like I knew that was happening. I had my 3 levels of expectations. And so I planned for that. But now, if you don't already know, I am currently in a 2 week sprint. I am currently in a 2 week sprint for learning Italian and learning German. And I actually have to finish my German studies. I'll do that after this live. And so really, I'm going to write down all those different things in my overview. What did I do? What did I not do? Why did I avoid it? All those different pieces because everything needs to be on paper, written down first so that we can look at it, analyze it, and move forward. So that's the first step. Give yourself an overview of your language studies. Now, the next thing that I recommend you do is then go into the highlights. What were the highlights of the past 3 months, the past 6 months, the past year in your language studies? Big things, small things. I always tell my students and my clients to celebrate your wins in your language studies, especially if you're like me and you are a perfectionist, because it can be really hard to see, pay attention to, acknowledge those wins because we are so hyper focused on the things that are going wrong, the mistakes that we're making, the failures that we're experiencing. And so every 3 months, if I haven't done it within the 3 months, I set aside this time to write down every win that I've had, big and small. From if I think about even just the past 3 days in my Italian and German studies, like me making connections between grammar points and vocabulary without overthinking it, me successfully completing 2 days of a 2 week sprint. Like any of these things are wins and they should be celebrated. Hello, hello. But I'm so glad that you're here. I'm doing like a sprint live right now, sharing just part of what members get in. So the 90-day sprint that people are working on right now. So we said first, do like an overview of your language studies, just what happened, period, what's happening in your language studies. And then you want to talk about the highlights, the wins, and write those down. I personally actually have like a wins tracker, and I just keep track of all the things that are happening that are amazing and I want to celebrate. Because again, I tend to look at the negative things. I tend to focus on the mistakes and the failures as a perfectionist. And so that is my reminder that, hey, it's actually not that bad. I'm actually doing okay. And it makes it easier for me to recognize them when they're happening. Now, the next thing is the lowlights, the setback. You do want to write these out. You do want to figure out, okay, what was happening that was not okay? What were the mistakes that I made? What were the failures that I experienced? Like I can say recently, I was trying to use my Spanish because I used to actually translate conferences for families when I was teaching in person. And then 2 years, I stopped using Spanish to that intensity. So I was at work at a different job and was like, yes, yeah, I speak Spanish. I can help you. And he was saying words that made sense. And I was like, oh my God, now I look like I don't speak Spanish, but I do. But I was like, even if you told me that in English, I still don't fully know what you're trying to tell me. And to me, for me, that was a lot. That was, I put it under a setback because I was like, okay, I guess I need to up my vocabulary again because I've forgotten something. And I would write that down in my setbacks category, my low light category. Write all those things down, acknowledge them, give yourself the space to feel whatever feelings are coming up, the disappointments, whatever it might be, because we're going to use that information to help you plan for this Q2. So April, May, and June in your language studies. Now, the next thing is milestones. What are the goals that you reach, the milestones that you've achieved, again, big or small? So I finished a section on Duolingo or Lingo Deer. I completed 3 podcast episodes. I successfully spoke to another person in the language. I looked something up once or twice on Google in the language that I'm learning. Write down those milestones, and they might overlap and often will overlap with those wins. That is okay. But you just want to write down what are those milestones that you reach. And if you had a plan already, like if you're someone who plans already for your language studies, or you follow my content and you follow the way that I structure plans and how I teach people how to plan, then the milestones are going to be the goals that you set. Like milestones and goals for me are interchangeable. So write all those things down. My Korean and didn't realize it. Fraction is also an over criticized. Needs to make it. Yes, you do need to make a plan for quarter 2. And that is exactly why I'm here right now doing this live. Cause I was like, in case people don't know, make sure you're doing this. Like reset, refresh, whatever happened before, let it go. Let's start anew. So those milestones. And then there are 3 other things that I recommend in this audit, but I'm actually going to expand on it a little bit more because there's some things that I don't share in this workshop. I just share with my members. So the next thing is to think about your overall motivation. So how motivated were you over the past 3 months, 6 months, year? Your confidence, the level of confidence that you had, and your consistency, because that's going to tell you some areas to work on. If your motivation was low, okay, how can we boost your motivation? What was impacting your motivation? Okay, confidence is low. Why were you confident? What about speaking or writing or listening or reading was impacting your confidence? And then when we think about consistency, why were you not consistent? Were you productively procrastinating, which is essentially you're doing things, you're studying. You're just not doing the things you know you should be doing. Like there's so many layers to it. But once you write all this down, then you can address it and then you can make a plan that's even better than the one before. But again, you have overview, highlights, lowlights, milestones, and then the overall consistency, motivation, confidence. Like go through that. That is your language learning audit. But the second tier out of this is analyzing your skills in each language. So if you're like me and you're studying multiple languages, whether it's like 3 that are your focus and 1 or 2 that are maintenance. Right now, I'm at officially 11 because I started 2 new ones recently. And so for each language, you want to go through and say, where are my speaking skills, my listening skills, reading, writing, vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation? Go through all of those. I usually tell my students and clients to rate it on a scale of 1 star to 6 stars because 2 stars equal like A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. And most language learners at some point dive into that whole realm of how to rate and level your language skills. And so go through each skill for each language. Like for my Mandarin studies, where would I say my listening is? Is it 2 stars? Is it 3 stars? Because again, all of this data that you're writing down, you're not just thinking about it, you're writing it down somewhere. I love Notion. You are recording it so that in the future you can look back at all the progress and go, wow, either I was doing amazing or there's something wrong that I need to fix. But also you're writing it down so you can address it. Because when it's up here, it can feel overwhelming. It can cause a lot of anxiety. It can paralyze you, meaning like you don't even know what to do next, or you're afraid to make decisions and take action, when you have it all written down, you can really look at it and go, okay, now that I know what I'm dealing with, it's out of my head. What can I do? Can I do this on my own? Do I need support? Can I ask a friend? Can I check in with someone? Like, what can I do about this? Because there are things that you can do. Yes, productive procrastination, like that one. And wait, oh, we missed it. That was me. Yep. Yeah. And so I figured for myself, for example, my plan coming into Q2 is I haven't officially made my like full Q2 plan because my goal for now, this week and next week, is just the sprint. Like I'm only focused on Italian and German. But then after that, I'm going to do my regular routine. So this sprint is like not the way that I recommend anyone unless you have like tons of time and energy. I usually don't recommend studying like this because I'm doing every single day intense studying so I can get myself to a place that I can start using Italian and German like small ways, which most likely would be like podcasts or video games, like or reading. Like, yeah, like I said, I wasn't going to be on here long, but I did just want to come on here to give some tips and strategies on giving yourself a language learning audit. Now, this is a more comprehensive workshop. And actually, this was like a super fast version of it because I break down all these parts even further. And then what eventually happens is I take people through actual quarterly planning. So, planning, and I'm looking at the thing right now. So, what are your plans for the next 90 days? What are your plans for the next months? What are the plans for the week? And then, what are your daily plans, which you can do or cannot do? And I explain why in that workshop. But if nothing else, if you just go through the same steps that I just shared right now, which are overview of your entire language studies, like what have you done over the past few months? If you write down all of the highlights and the wins that you've experienced, all of the lowlights and setbacks that you've experienced, if you write down the milestones or the goals that you've reached, and then you think about your consistency, your confidence, and your motivation. If you do that bare minimum, there's a lot in there, but you're only doing this once a quarter right now, and then 3 months from now, that is going to set you up for success in your language studies because you're going to have so much information about what you've done, and you can make decisions on that. Say, hey, this didn't work, so don't do that again, or modify it, do something different. Oh, this did work. Okay, maybe I should do more of that. And you might not realize that until you write it all down, until you have it all on paper or in Notion or, wherever it is that you like to process your information. Because you might also be someone who just likes to say it out loud in an audio recording, like on your phone, and then listen back to it later. So, whatever way that you process information, just get it down. And then you can actually use that to create your language plans. And if you need help with creating those plans, definitely check out my other resources, some of which are completely free, like my newest guide, which is the goals and habits that I recommend language learners set, especially if you're getting started and you're not sure where to start. So there are 3 specific goals and 3 specific habits. Hello, hello, welcome, welcome. We're just at the end of my super, super fast live. I have just gone over like all of the steps that I recommend. And it's literally the steps that I share in a workshop in my membership on a language learning audit. So, how to audit yourself from the past 3 months so that you can then use that information to create your next language learning plan and not panic, not get overwhelmed, and also not procrastinate. And so, super fast summary of it all is you want to start off with an overview. So, what did you do in your language studies period? Past 3 months, past 6 months, just what did you do? What happened? What didn't happen? You write that down. Then you go over highlights and wins. What were the things that you experienced that were amazing, big or small, wins that you've had in your language studies? Next one is the low light or the setback. What challenges did you face? What failures did you have? What mistakes did you make? It's important to write those down and acknowledge them. It is okay to make mistakes. And for people like me who are perfectionists, sometimes writing down the mistake is just as important as writing down the wins. We as perfectionists often ignore those wins and we inflate the mistakes and make them out to be much worse than they were. And so in both cases, writing it down, you're like, oh, that was all I did. It was so embarrassing. That was it. Okay. I guess it wasn't too bad. And then from there, milestones that you've reached. What are the goals that you actually achieved? You write down the goals that you set and did not achieve, because then you can address, is that still my goal? Am I changing it? How am I going to reach it this time? And how do you feel about your consistency over the past 3 months, your motivation over the past 3 months, your confidence? Because those are the things that are going to tell you what to focus on. If your confidence is low, then how can I boost my confidence? What is making me feel a lack of confidence? And you directly address that, because that is the reason why you weren't making, the progress that you were hoping for. What about your consistency? Maybe you weren't as consistent. Okay, why did you not do the things you planned to do? Were they boring? Were they difficult? Were they too challenging? Were you still unsure? Was there not enough structure? Like, you see all the things that are coming out of this. And then from there, get to go, hey, my consistency was really low. It was low because I didn't have enough structure. Okay, next time I need to stop winging my plans and just sitting down and saying, okay, I'll study whatever is in front of me. And instead, you realize I actually need to be more rigid with the task that I'm setting and more rigid with the time that I'm saying I'm going to study. So I have to actually say I'm studying on Tuesdays, 3 p.m., and I'm studying this textbook. And that is the thing that I'm doing. You realize that from this kind of audit or reflection. I think this is going to be my new thing, like hopping on really fast, sharing some super amazing tips in this way, and then dipping. So thank you so much, and we'll see you around next time.